Take it.
Thanks to Thrive Market for sponsoring today's video. More on them in a bit. I really love our days in the kitchen this time of year because there are so many fresh things coming out of the garden. Now, we don't have a big garden this year. We just have some herbs and flowers. We're really hoping that by next year we'll be able to put in the big garden, but with the way everything lined up with the move and when the new house was done, we are just going to rest this year when it comes to putting in a big garden. But my sister and her husband harvested so much lettuce and greens that we have an abundance of that. So a lot of the meals I'm going to talk about this week are going to center around things that come out of the garden, or they really lend themselves to adding fresh herbs, fresh tomatoes, and greens, and all of that good stuff. So the first thing that we are going to make today is a recipe that my sister Laura from Our Oily House makes all the time in her kitchen. Her kids constantly request it, and I tend to actually forget about it, but that is steak salad. So basically, we put steak on a bed of greens with French fries. Now, I am frying my fries in some reserved bacon fat that I've used a few times. So usually when I fry something, I will then put it back through a strainer to strain off any little bits of food, and then I will continue to use it until it seems like it's not really working great anymore. Usually I can tell that the fat isn't working as well when my potatoes don't come out crispy because it has taken on too much moisture from the potatoes. But today it's still going strong. Some reserved bacon fat and probably some other lard. I like to just keep that cooking fat. And then after I have some crispy potatoes, I'm going to top it with hard-boiled eggs, some tomatoes. Now right now, these of course are not from the garden because we're still a few weeks before anybody's going to have fresh tomatoes, and some onions and various other toppings. Now I'm also going to make a homemade honey mustard. I have this in our refrigerator pretty much at all times because it's just so easy and I always have the ingredients on hand. To start, I'll make a base of mayo. Now I'm making a double batch today, a 2-egg batch, because I'm also going to reserve about half of that mayo and use it for a meal that we're making later in the week, something we've been making a ton that also has a mayo-based sauce that goes along with it. So to make mayo, I put 2 eggs in the bottom of a wide mouth jar, add a little salt, usually something acidic, either vinegar or mustard or lemon juice, and then top it with oil. I do about a cup of oil per egg, and then use the immersion blender, and it makes this nice thick mayo. So I'm setting half aside for later in the week, and then I'm gonna add some lemon juice, some mustard, and honey, and this will make the most delicious honey mustard. I just put my immersion blender back in there, and it makes our favorite dressing. Now my daughter had the idea to make a summer drink, so she is cooking some berries with some sweetener, adding some fresh mint because we do have a couple of pots of mint, and some lemons, and just make this really delicious fruity iced drink. And we're gonna eat outside today, which I'm so excited about. We haven't set up our outside table until just now, and we are looking forward to putting in a patio and all this stuff, but for now it will just be right off the sunroom, a few steps, there's a table, and it's good enough to enjoy some alfresco dining. Now, I want to talk a bit about the kitchen design because I had a few commenters on my last video who said that the kitchen just feels a little bare, it doesn't feel like me. And I just want to say, give me some time. I have so many plans. This is still just a brand new house that I haven't had time to really add my decor to. And when we live in a new space, soon your mind will start to notice things and you'll start to creatively think about it, whether that's adding curtains, or in my case, I'm going to be adding some tile above the LaConch range that I'm so super excited about. Something that might take a while because I want to make sure it's just right because I want to keep it forever. So many little things that I'm thinking about, like, oh, I cannot wait to add a rug there. I cannot wait to add some art there and a curtain there. I have big plans. We're just still settling in. I cannot wait to source some turned leg bar stools for underneath the kitchen island. Collect antique china, baskets, rugs, so many things that will take years because a house comes together over many, many years. That's that look that I'm going for. I'm going for that layered, collected country style that cannot be rushed. And of course, as always, in all the homes we've lived in, I'm excited to take you all along that journey through the years as this home comes together. I'm really looking forward to decorating it. We are in the fun phase now. It was such a challenge building this house and getting everything, the proportions, all the little details, and now I can just enjoy the fun part. I'm able to keep my pantry stocked with organic, quality ingredients because of today's sponsor, Thrive Market. Now, Thrive Market is an online grocery store that specializes in organic, natural. They actually vet the products that go on their website. They have a big list of ingredients that they don't allow so that you don't have to obsessively read labels to make sure that you are getting high quality and the things that you actually want for your kids to eat, even during busy times like summer. During the summer, I like to stock up on things that are easy. Things like chips fried in avocado oil. I get a lot of baking essentials and spices from Thrive Market so that I can always be ready to grab something on the go. Our favorite minimal ingredient chocolate chips come from Thrive Market, so I like to stock up on those, as well as things like organic ketchup and maple syrup and mustard. It serves me well to have my pantry well stocked. I love that on the Thrive Market website you can sort by dietary preference. So if you are paleo, gluten-free, dairy-free, you can make it to where you only see those options, so it's a very streamlined shopping experience. You don't have to filter through a ton of things that you won't want in your kitchen. And if you're like me and you order from Thrive Market repeatedly, you get on, you see the things you order, you add them to your cart, and then orders over $49 ship for free within the US, so it comes right to my door, making it convenient and easy, which is very important for a busy mom like me. Right now is a great time to try out Thrive Market because they are offering Farmhouse on Boone viewers $20 off your first 3 orders, plus a free gift worth up to $60 when you use my link, thrivemarket.com/farmhouse on Boone. I will also leave it linked down in the description box below. The next thing I'm making today may not be something that you think of as a summer dish, but I have a few arguments for how it could be, and that is a homemade lasagna. Now, this is a labor of love, I will say. I had the afternoon to work on this, so I ended up making pretty much everything from scratch, from the sauce to the ricotta cheese. I did not make the mozzarella from scratch. But I like a lasagna because, one, you can incorporate tons of vegetables and herbs from the garden. So if you have a bunch of tomatoes and onions, peppers, garlic, basil, making up a big batch of sauce is a really great way to preserve tomatoes, whether or not you freeze the sauce or you just use a ton of it in dishes like lasagna. It really makes tomatoes, I was going to say it makes them go a long way, but it actually uses up a lot of tomatoes, which is great. Now, I don't have that yet, but I am still just using up a bunch of leftovers. So from yesterday's dish and from last time we had burgers, I had some sliced onions in a Ziploc bag. I find myself doing this like just at the end of a meal and we're trying to put everything away. There's a little bit of leftover vegetables, throwing them in a Ziploc bag, and then sometimes forgetting about them. And making up a big batch of sauce is just a great way to use up those kinds of things. Even if you have something kind of unconventional, like say some shredded carrots, that would become great and actually sweeten and be used up easily in a tomato-based sauce for something like lasagna. Today I am using some garlic, a couple different types of onions, diced tomatoes, a little bit of sugar, some salt. Just add things to taste and then let it simmer for a while, add some herbs maybe from the garden, and then use an immersion blender. Now, if you want a recipe for homemade marinara sauce, I do have that over on the blog. I will leave links to all of the recipes that I have over on the blog in the description box below. Now, today I wasn't really planning to make lasagna, and so I looked in the fridge and realized I didn't have a lot of the things that you need, but it is actually really simple and easy to make homemade ricotta. And we have a really great milk source right now locally, and so what we do always have a lot of is milk. So I am just making homemade ricotta with some milk, salt, and vinegar. This will curdle the milk, and then you can just put it through a tea towel in order to separate the curds from the whey, and there you have some homemade ricotta. I do have this process over on the blog farmhouseonboone.com, which I'll also link below. I cooked up some sausage and ground beef. I will add that to the sauce mixture for my sauce layer of the lasagna. Now, I use different meats when it comes to lasagna. Sometimes I'll use venison, sometimes sausage, sometimes ground beef. If I'm using venison and I also have sausage, I do like to combine them because it just adds some really great flavor. Sausage is always good in a lasagna. But again, my argument for lasagna being a summer dish is that you can use up all of those garden veggies. Now, I'm also adding some eggs to a bowl. I will mix that with the ricotta. Now, usually in a lasagna recipe, you also mix some grated Parmesan cheese in with that, but today I just didn't have any in my fridge. And so I'm just doing eggs mixed with ricotta and salt for that ricotta layer, and ended up turning out fabulous. Now, my sauce ended up a little bit thick because I didn't want to first boil my noodles. So I added some of the whey that strained off from the ricotta cheese into the sauce just to thin it down a bit. And I have found that when you don't use oven ready noodles, that if you just add a little extra liquid to the lasagna, it will cook those noodles anyway without you having to boil them first, which to me is such a pain. They all stick together in the water. It's just not a great idea, in my opinion. I'm sure there's some kind of hack, but to me, the best hack is just add a little bit more liquid to your sauce and it all cooks up beautifully and cooks those noodles. So to assemble the lasagna, I usually like to do a layer of sauce. Then I add on some noodles, a layer of the ricotta mixture, cheese, repeat until some cheese on top. I do like to cover it in the first hour or so of baking to really let everything cook, including the noodles. And then I uncover it to make the cheese nice and brown after everything is cooked. But who doesn't love lasagna? And usually it's not that hard just to make up a double batch so you can have leftovers. Another case for lasagna being a summer meal: less time in the kitchen if you prepare ahead and you have those leftovers. I just love the flexibility that leftovers provide, especially in the summertime. Say you're hanging out and it's a nice hot day, you're by the creek. Who wants to rush home and make dinner? Now, the next thing that we have been making over and over again in our house, and I thought it was finally time to share it on here, is sort of a sheet pan dinner. I actually use 2 sheet pans just because we have a large family and I need to make more food. But it's super easy, and it's also one that you can make ahead, make a bunch of, and have leftovers. So for the first sheet pan, I'm just peeling and dicing sweet potatoes. I am going to cover them in tons of olive oil, paprika, cumin, chili powder, and salt. And the goal is to get them nice and crispy in the oven. Now, this requires leaving them in the oven for a really long time. So lots of hands-off time, but not a super fast meal. If you need to get dinner on the table in 30 minutes, this might not be the one. But I put it in the oven, and then about halfway through, I give it a stir, kind of flip everything over, make sure everything is getting nice and crisp. But the flavor combination of these spices on sweet potatoes is so good. We kind of forgot that we liked sweet potatoes. Actually, a lot of my kids had it in their head that they didn't like it, because most of the time the way I make sweet potatoes is in some kind of like mash, and they don't like that. But everyone seems to love them when they're prepared this way, especially when I serve it with the other components of this meal. So I'm also going to make 2 cups of rice. I'll let that boil and simmer while I make the meatballs. So I like to make this dish with meatballs. I use sausage, so I get breakfast sausage from my sister Ashley's farm. Now, Ashley actually has a channel. I share it on here occasionally, so you guys can go check it out, but it's called New Hartford Farm Co. If you want to see the ins and outs of her farm in real life and how she manages it with 2 young children. But anyways, this is breakfast sausage. I don't add anything else. Now, it would of course be great to dice up some onions or add some breadcrumbs, but I just roll them into meatballs just to make this nice and easy, and then pop them in the oven while I make the sauce. So I read about this kind of sauce somewhere on the internet. They used different things, but I decided to just use this hot date sauce from Date Lady. So if you haven't checked out Date Lady, I've shared her on here a ton because we love her sweet chili sauce. We love their barbecue sauce. And this hot date is pretty recent. Actually, they had another new launch. It was a chocolate sauce that we absolutely love too. But this hot date was a recent thing that they started offering. And just mixing that with mayo and lemon juice makes the most amazing burger bowl sauce, or any kind of dish where you're layering things and then you want a little sauce to put on top. So lately, the combination we've been doing is rice, sweet potatoes that were spiced, sausage meatballs, some grated Parmesan, and then that Date Lady mixed with lemon juice and mayo combo. So I had the mayo that I reserved earlier this week just for this occasion. And I'm also topping it with some fresh sage that I picked up at the farmer's market. This is a good one, and I love meals like this where people can build it at the table. So if you have a pickier child and all they want is rice and meat and sweet potatoes, so be it. If they want the sauce and they want the sage, great too. It's just really flexible in that way. Now, another thing that we like year round, but it's really great when eggs are abundant because it uses a lot of eggs, and that is a pasta carbonara. I also love that it's a really basic pasta. Really, it's just creamy. It has bacon, so you can really jazz it up by sauteing vegetables and adding some fresh herbs. This one's also great because it comes together very, very quickly, and it utilizes staples that you probably have on hand, at least we do, and it's flexible because you don't have to add all the different vegetables. You can just add whatever you have. This is supposed to be made with spaghetti noodles, but I just had the sourdough penny on hand in my pantry from Thrive Market, and it works just fine, really, no matter what the noodle shape is. Now, I am going to admit that I rushed it this time, and so I had the eggs cook ever so slightly. Not a big deal because my kids scarfed it down anyways. They just love a creamy bacon pasta. I mean, who wouldn't? But if you don't want the eggs to cook, maybe let your noodles cool a bit more or temper them a bit better. I did try to rush it by just like tempering it really quick, but I rushed it, like I said. But it was still so good, and everyone ate it so quickly. It did not matter at all. We were actually swimming this day. Everyone was hungry, and we ended up eating dinner at like 4 o'clock and then had to eat more food later because they ate this so darn fast. I had some zucchini and peppers, and I put some of that on top as well. It made it just so delicious. Now, normally soup is a winter food, but there are a few soups that taste great any time of the year, especially when you can add fresh herbs and vegetables from the garden. This creamy Southwest chicken soup is an example of that, and it's a recipe over on my blog, farmhouseonboone.com. Now, today I did not have chicken, but what I did have was a lot of boneless pork chops, and so I decided I would try to see how that turns out in a Southwest chicken soup. And actually, it turns out delicious. And I don't know if anybody would even be able to tell the difference. Well, I'm sure an adult could, but none of the kids could tell any kind of difference. I love this one because it also relies on a lot of staples that we have around. So meat in the freezer, root vegetables like onion and garlic and fresh peppers this time of year, chicken broth, lots of spices, frozen corn, toppings like sour cream, tortilla chips, avocados, jalapeno peppers, canned beans, canned tomatoes. Again, all just things that I tend to keep and have in my kitchen. And so this is just the perfect meal for us, really any time of the year, but it's way better when you can add things that are actually fresh, which will be happening very soon. I just love this time of year and all of the food that comes with it. Well, thank you so much for watching as I made food for my family during this late spring, early summer week. If you are brand new to my channel, I make cooking videos like this for my large family, simple, approachable meals. And we also just moved into a farmhouse that we built from scratch, made to look old. So I am sharing a ton of decorating, collecting projects. If that's your kind of thing, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much for stopping by our farmhouse.